The American dream has officially entered a terminal state across 5 major American hubs. By 2026, a new class of working homeless has emerged, consisting of professionals earning $150,000 who now reside in vehicles to survive. In Miami, a 54% rent surge and $10,000 insurance premiums have effectively exiled the middle class. Seattle's $950,000 median home price has forced full-time employees into RVs, while San Diego's skyrocketing utility rates now make it more expensive than San Francisco. In Manhattan, studio rents crossing the $4,500 mark leave high earners, spending 60% of their take-home pay on shelter alone. The crisis culminates in San Francisco, where a $100,000 income is officially classified as low income despite $37 billion in crisis spending. This systemic failure is driven by a collapse in housing supply and benefit cliffs that trap workers. As these cities become economic traps, the search for safe havens begins. City number 5, Miami. Miami is no longer a paradise. It's a case study in the mirage. Once a sanctuary for tax refugees, Miami now holds a title for the most rent-burdened city in America. Housing costs have surged 54% since 2020, leaving 74% of renters cost-burdened, with 37% of households sacrificing over half of their monthly take-home pay just to keep a roof over their heads. This economic squeeze has birthed a new demographic of working homeless, where professionals earning mid-six-figure salaries are increasingly found living in vehicles or converted transit vans. The primary catalyst for this displacement isn't just rising rent, it's the 2026 hurricane insurance collapse. Homeowners and landlords are now facing annual premiums exceeding $10,500 for basic coverage, a 16% jump in just the last 2 years. These costs are immediately passed down to tenants, creating a feedback loop of unaffordability. While the median home price in Miami-Dade remains north of $590,000, the entry-level workforce, the paramedics, police officers, and hospitality staff who serve the city's international elite, has been effectively exiled. By early 2026, the geographic reality is grim. The average essential worker is forced to commute from over 40 miles outside the city center, as downtown zip codes become gated communities for global wealth. This is the official death of the American dream in Florida, a structural failure where earning a good salary no longer guarantees a home, but merely a spot in the suburban commute. As middle-class residents are pushed toward the Everglades, the Magic City remains vibrant only for those who don't have to work for a living within its borders. Number 4, Seattle. In 2026, Seattle, Washington, had become a living paradox where the high-gloss towers of global tech giants cast long shadows over a burgeoning population of tech tents. The Emerald City's housing market has reached a fever pitch, with the median home price officially hitting a staggering $950,000. This pricing surge has redefined the very fabric of the middle class. In King County, a household of 4 now requires an incredible $214,000 annually just to be considered part of the middle-income tier. For anyone outside the top echelon of software engineering, the city has transformed into an economic fortress, where even a 6-figure salary feels like a precarious survival wage. The most shocking byproduct of this 2026 reality is the RV explosion across the Puget Sound region. King County has recorded a historic peak in vehicle dwelling, but the demographics have shifted significantly. These are not just trends in populations. Data indicates a record number of these residents are full-time employees, teachers, tradespeople, and junior tech workers who log 60-hour weeks before retiring to vans parked in industrial zones. This phenomenon highlights the monoculture costs created by tech giants like Amazon. While corporate salaries have risen, they have simultaneously inflated the cost of living to a level that only senior developers can comfortably navigate. By early 2026, the American dream in Seattle has been reduced to a specialized luxury. If an individual isn't pulling in a high-tier developer's paycheck, they are effectively classified as low income within the city limits. This structural failure has turned one of America's most innovative hubs into a cautionary tale, where the distance between a corner office and a roadside RV is measured not by effort, but by a zip code that no longer allows for a middle ground. The dream didn't just move, it was outpaced by its own success. Number 3. San Diego. In 2026, San Diego, California, has transitioned from America's finest city into a cautionary tale of paradise lost. While San Francisco historically held the crown for the highest cost of living, San Diego has officially surpassed it when accounting for the total daily survival tax. The primary culprit isn't just the rent, it's the utilities. San Diego now boasts the highest electricity and water rates in the nation, with the average household utility bill surging 22% over the last 18 months. When combined with a median monthly rent that has plateaued at an eye-watering $3,400, the sheer cost of existence has effectively hollowed out the coastal middle class. This economic pressure has birthed a haunting new demographic, the commuter homeless. These are not the chronically unemployed, but rather a mobile workforce of teachers, hospitality managers, and healthcare assistants who have traded bedrooms for converted Sprinter vans. Data from 2026 suggests a record 14% increase in vehicle dwelling among those with full-time employment. Many of these residents engage in a grueling daily ritual, driving to the outskirts of the county, or even across the border to access affordable fuel and basic services, using national gym memberships as their primary means of maintaining hygiene before heading into a professional shift. The death of the dream in San Diego is defined by a collapse in purchasing power. By early 2026, a $120,000 salary in this zip code carries less real-world buying power than a $60,000 salary in the Midwest. The sunshine tax has become an insurmountable wall. For the average worker, the proximity to the Pacific Ocean no longer compensates for a life lived on the edge of insolvency. As the city becomes a playground for the ultra-wealthy, the dream of a stable, beachside middle-class life has been officially replaced by a high-stakes game of financial survival. Number 2. New York City. By early 2026, New York City has undergone a brutal economic transformation, shifting from the city that never sleeps to the city that never saves. In Manhattan, the baseline for survival has been reset by a housing market that defies traditional logic. For the first time in history, the average monthly rent for a standard studio apartment, often no more than 450 square feet, has crossed the $4,500 mark. This represents a pricing paradigm where the closet apartment is no longer a rite of passage for the young and ambitious, but a luxury trap for the established professional. The most devastating blow to the city's stability arrived with the post-subsidies collapse of late 2025. As federal rental assistance programs like ERA2 finally reached their expiration, the safety net for thousands of middle-income earners vanished overnight. Data from early 2026 indicates that evictions among residents earning between $80,000 and $120,000 have spiked by 30%. These are not individuals at the bottom of the economic ladder. They are the administrative backbones and mid-level managers of the city's corporations. Without the buffer of 2025's emergency assistance, the math of Manhattan has become unsustainable. The structural failure of the American dream in New York is best illustrated by the take-home trap. Today, a high earner pulling in $150,000 annually finds their buying power decimated by local taxes and the soaring cost of shelter. After federal, state, and city withholdings, these professionals are frequently spending 60% of their take-home pay on rent alone, with the remaining 40% consumed by record-high grocery inflation and utility surcharges. The ability to build equity or save for the future has effectively hit zero. In 2026, Manhattan is no longer a place to build a life. It is a high-cost staging ground where the middle class is being systematically priced out of the skyline. Number 1. San Francisco. The final stop on our descent into the collapse of the American dream brings us to San Francisco, California, the city that has officially become the most expensive in the world in 2026. With a staggering median home price of $1.4 million, the barrier to entry for homeownership has moved from difficult to mathematically impossible for all but the top 1% of earners. The most alarming data point of the year comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which now officially classifies a family before earning $100,000 annually as low income within the city limits. This is a city where a six-figure salary, once the gold standard of success, now qualifies you for government assistance and a life of perpetual renting. The tragedy of San Francisco is defined by a massive $37 billion expenditure on the homelessness crisis over the last 6 years. Yet the working homeless population has only increased. This is the ultimate failed promise of urban policy. As we enter 2026, the city is locked in what economists call the doom loop. With office vacancy rates hovering near 30%, commercial tax revenues have plummeted, forcing the city to shift the tax burden onto the remaining middle-class residents. This fiscal squeeze triggers a secondary exodus as small business owners and families flee the rising costs, further hollowing out the tax base and deteriorating public services. For the software engineers and healthcare workers still attempting to live here, the reality is a 60-hour work week just to maintain a spot in a tech dorm or a van parked in the Presidio. San Francisco represents the final stage of the geography of failure, a city with infinite wealth on paper that has become physically uninhabitable for the very people who make it run. The American dream didn't just die here. It was taxed, regulated, and priced into oblivion. The geography of failure. As the clock strikes 2026, the economic autopsy of these 5 cities reveals that the death of the American dream isn't a result of bad luck, but a calculated geography of failure. This systemic collapse is anchored in a chronic national housing deficit of nearly 4 million units, where archaic zoning laws and regulatory bottlenecks have effectively choked off the middle-class supply. By early 2026, the math has become predatory. We are now witnessing the peak of the benefit cliff phenomenon. Data suggests that for many mid-career professionals, a $10,000 promotion can trigger a catastrophic loss of child care and housing subsidies, resulting in an effective marginal tax rate of nearly 65%. In this upside-down economy, earning more has paradoxically made the American worker poorer. However, the collapse in San Francisco and New York is not the story of the entire nation. While coastal hubs have become monocultures of cost, a massive domestic migration is underway toward the 7 safe havens of 2026. In cities like Peoria, Illinois, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, the data tells a completely different story. In these markets, a $100,000 household income doesn't just provide survival, it offers a debt-to-income ratio of just 25%, allowing families to buy significant acreage and a stable future. The dream hasn't disappeared. It has simply changed its zip code to the Midwest and the Sun Belt's emerging secondary markets. The era of the superstar city is over, replaced by a quest for geographic sanity. But we want to hear the ground truth from you. Are you living in one of these high-cost traps? Tell us your monthly rent and your breaking point in the comments. We read every single response to help plan our next deep dive into the data that matters for your wallet.